Let me ask you something important. How many hours have you spent studying, reading the same page again and again, highlighting everything, rewriting notes, only to forget most of it a few days later? You sit there telling yourself, I studied so much, why don't I remember anything? And slowly, you start believing that maybe you're not smart enough, or that studying just isn't for you. But here's the truth that nobody ever told you in school. The problem was never you. The problem was the method. Schools teach you what to study, but almost never teach you how to study in a way that actually works with the brain. Most students are stuck using outdated, inefficient techniques that feel productive but produce very little real learning. And that's why today we're going to talk about the study method nobody teaches you, the one that can completely change how you learn, remember, and perform without studying more hours or burning yourself out. First, we need to destroy one dangerous myth. Studying longer does not mean studying better. Many students believe that success comes from grinding for endless hours, sacrificing sleep, skipping breaks, and pushing until exhaustion. But the brain doesn't work like a machine that improves with constant pressure. It works more like a muscle. If you train it correctly, it gets stronger. If you overuse it without strategy, it gets tired, confused, and ineffective. Most traditional studying is passive. Reading, highlighting, copying notes word for word, watching lectures without engaging. These activities feel safe because they require little effort, but they create an illusion of learning. Your brain recognizes the information, but recognition is not the same as understanding or remembering. The real method that works is uncomfortable at first because it forces your brain to work actively instead of just consuming information. The study method nobody teaches you is built on one core principle. Learning happens when you struggle a little, not when you feel comfortable, not when everything is easy, but when your brain is forced to retrieve, connect, and explain information on its own. The first key part of this method is active recall. Instead of rereading your notes, you close the book and try to remember what you learned without looking. You ask yourself questions. You explain concepts out loud as if you were teaching someone else. You write down everything you remember from memory, even if it feels messy or incomplete. This feels harder than rereading, but that difficulty is exactly what strengthens memory. Every time your brain struggles to retrieve information, it builds stronger neural connections. Most students avoid active recall because it exposes gaps in their knowledge, and that feels uncomfortable. But those gaps are not a sign of failure. They're a roadmap showing you exactly what you need to work on. When you identify what you don't know, learning becomes focused and efficient instead of random and overwhelming. The second part of this method is spaced repetition, which means reviewing information over time instead of cramming everything at once. Your brain forgets information naturally, and every time you revisit it just before you forget, you reinforce the memory. Studying something once for 5 hours is far less effective than studying it for 1 hour across 5 different days. Real learning is built through repetition with space, not intensity without rest. Another powerful technique schools rarely teach is interleaving, which means mixing different but related topics instead of studying only one subject for hours. When you switch between concepts, your brain is forced to compare, adapt, and choose the correct approach instead of operating on autopilot. This leads to deeper understanding and better problem-solving skills, especially in subjects like math, science, and languages. But studying is not just about techniques. It's also about how you manage your energy and environment. Your focus is a limited resource. If your phone is next to you, if notifications are buzzing, if you're constantly checking messages, your brain never fully enters a deep learning state. One of the most effective study habits is creating distraction-free study sessions where your phone is out of reach, notifications are off, and your attention is protected like something valuable, because it is. Another mistake students make is waiting to feel motivated before studying. Motivation is unreliable. Some days it shows up, many days it doesn't. The students who succeed are not the most motivated ones, but the most consistent ones. They study even when they don't feel like it, using small, manageable sessions instead of waiting for the perfect moment. Discipline builds momentum, and momentum creates motivation, not the other way around. You also need to understand that rest is not the enemy of productivity. Sleep is not wasted time. Breaks are not laziness. When you sleep, your brain consolidates memories and organizes information. When you take short breaks, your focus resets and your learning quality improves. Studying while exhausted is like trying to write with an empty pen. You're putting in effort, but nothing useful comes out. One of the most underrated study strategies is teaching what you learn. When you explain a concept in simple words, your brain is forced to organize information logically and identify weak points. You don't need a real audience. You can teach an imaginary student, record yourself, or explain concepts to a friend. If you can teach it clearly, you truly understand it. Mindset also plays a massive role in how well you learn. Many students believe intelligence is fixed, that some people are naturally smart and others are not. This belief silently destroys effort and confidence. The truth is that intelligence grows with deliberate practice. Every time you struggle, make mistakes, and keep going, your brain adapts. Feeling confused doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're learning. The study method nobody teaches you is not about perfection. It's about progress. You don't need to follow it perfectly every day. Some days will be messy, unfocused, and frustrating. What matters is that you return the next day and continue. Consistency beats intensity every single time. So, if you've ever felt stupid, slow, or behind because studying never worked for you, understand this: you were never bad at learning. You were just never taught how to learn properly. When you switch from passive to active study, from cramming to spacing, from distraction to focus, everything changes. You start remembering more, understanding faster, and feeling more confident in your abilities. And remember this: education is not about memorizing facts to pass exams. It's about training your brain to think, solve problems, and adapt. When you learn how to learn, you gain a skill that stays with you for life, far beyond school, grades, or degrees. If you apply this method consistently, even for just a few weeks, you'll notice a shift. Studying will feel less overwhelming, progress will feel real, and slowly the confidence you thought you lacked will start showing up, because confidence is built through evidence, not motivation. You don't need to study harder. You need to study smarter. And once you do, everything changes.